So WumpaLewis just released a video talking about how it's been 6 years since Nitro Fueled was released, and discussing what that means for the Crash franchise. It's funny because there was a chat about just that in my Discord server just a day before he posted the video. The spark that caused Lewis to make that video was the official Crash social channels announcing that the Insane trilogy has sold 20 million copies and that Nitro Fueled has surpassed 10 million copies. The main point of his video was to consider if the fact that this was mentioned at all, or the fact that Xbox themselves commented on the post, was some kind of indication for the future of the Crash series. Whether it be maybe a new game being released, a remaster of a previous game, or even an update on Crash Nitro Fueled was something that could be considered. And by the end of the video, Lewis is, quite rightly, skeptical. I will link his video in the description so that you can see exactly what points from the video I'm expanding upon. So if you've not seen it, you should probably pause this video here and watch his video first. So before we get to the title of the video, the first thing to consider is Crash's sales trajectory to gauge its current popularity. 20 million units for Insane is insane. That is over the course of 8 years, of course, so it is a slow burner to reach that milestone, but regardless, 20 million is a huge number of sales for any game, regardless of the genre. Then we come to CTR, released in 2019 with 10 million sold. That's already a 50% reduction, even though it came out only a year after Insane, but unlike Insane, it didn't release on Steam. Regardless, 10 million copies is still a very successful game, especially for a kart racer that's not Mario. Next is Crash 4, that has sold over 5 million copies since 2020, another 50% reduction with only a year in difference. And unlike CTR, this game was released on Steam and is a mainline Crash experience. A year after that, you see Crash on the Run. This had 60 million downloads, but that's more understandable as it was a free-to-play game on a device that people take everywhere. It made around $4 million in-app purchases before being closed down in 2023. I can only assume that $4 million was not enough to warrant the game being actively maintained. Finally, in the same year as Crash on the Run, Crash Team Rumble was released, and even though there's no concrete information on how well it sold, the data trends that I could find in regards to things such as active player bases at the time, it's predicted that it sold between 1 and 2 million copies worldwide, with Insane still outselling Crash Team Rumble on the same year of its release. Now, if you look at this downward trend from the eyes of a greedy corporation,
you can see why these numbers seem unlikely to add up to a happy ending from our perspective.
It's clear that nostalgia drove more Crash sales than newer titles. But the 5 million copies from Crash 4 and 10 million copies from Nitro Fueled should still point to there being a desire for traditional Crash experiences. This brings me to the other main point in Lewis's video and the main purpose behind the title of this video. It's time to accept that the original Nitro Fueled game is never coming to Steam. First up, it has a completely outdated online mode by this point. It was outdated then, and so it's sure as hell outdated now. I won't cover old ground about why it's not a very good online mode, but I will expand upon it. Adding Steam to the mix would require making crossplay actually work, as even PS4 to PS5 crossplay can easily break. Now imagine if the Steam version was also a 60 frame per second experience versus the 30 frame per second that is expected on some of the consoles. Online for OG CTR is currently just as active, if not more so, than Nitro Fueled's online mode. The second reason is that Microsoft would have to reallocate resources back to a game that they have already announced moving on from once the Grand Prix saga ended. It's clear that the reason that Grand Prix mode was not maintained for longer was probably because in-game purchases of Wumpa coins was not returning the investment of having a dedicated team keeping the game maintained and relevant. The third reason is hacking, cracking, and modding. People would definitely mod the game with custom tracks and characters, making it more difficult to put together a compelling sequel if ever they chose to do so. See Nintendo's stance on extra game content for games like Mario and Pokemon, just to know how seriously some corporations can take this. The third reason is they would need a maintenance team to deal with people who hack the game in online mode. They did nothing to combat hacking time trials in Insane, for example, and that was just a single player game, so I doubt that they would be bothered to deal with it on Nitro Fueled, leading probably to a poor player experience. But I just want to say that it's not all doom and gloom. I want to use this video to direct people to the next best thing that's currently in the works. If we can't have CTR by Microsoft, we'll have to have CTR at home. And the CTR at home in this circumstance doesn't look that bad at all. The Karters 2 game development is something that I've been following closely, and even though I've not played it myself, I'm very impressed with what I've seen so far. The devs are heavily inspired by CTR and also love community input and actively encourage modded content to keep the game alive. It also seems that they're heavily invested in having an online mode that is actually fit for purpose. So please consider checking out the Karters 2, because if it sells well, who knows what could happen with Crash. It's very unlikely that it would trigger a Nitro Fueled Steam release for the reasons I've already mentioned, but it may just nudge them into thinking a sequel to Nitro Fueled may well be worth making.